Hey everybody, I'm Brian. This is Laura.
Hi.
In case anybody was confused, we're the Horror Tours, and we're doing something a little different this time for one of our first reviews of the 2019 season. We're talking to you the way we talk to one another about the haunts that we go to. So when we go to haunts, oftentimes on the way home when we're driving and things, we're talking to one another about what we like and what we don't like. And we thought, well, maybe we'll just do that this way, and we're trying an experiment here. Let us know how you like it. We're going to talk about Niles Haunted House in Niles, Michigan. Traditionally, this is a haunt that we usually start off the season with.
Yes.
Okay. It was slightly different this year because Friday the 13th fell on a Friday, hence the name. So there were a couple of haunts before it, but nevertheless, Niles, unofficially this year, was the big kickoff haunt.
Yes.
So we drove out to Niles, Michigan. For those uninitiated who don't know, Niles Haunted House is actually an amusement park, if you want to call it that, a haunted amusement park. It's
called a Scream Park.
Niles Scream Park.
Yes.
It's got 5 haunted attractions. One's an outdoor one. It's a trail type of thing. One is a hayride, and there are 2 smaller haunted houses and 1 big haunted house. Plus, they have a midway with games, and they have food, and they have escape rooms. And for those of you who like that kind of thing where you're blindfolded and that kind of stuff, they do have an attraction called Hooded. So if that's your thing, but it's not our thing, so you won't hear about it here on this review. But we are going to talk about what we thought about the haunts this year. So let's start with the smaller haunts. So there are 2 smaller haunts, right?
Yes.
And how long are each one of those haunts, roughly?
They're probably about maybe 10 minutes or so each.
There are 2 of them. They're side by side. They change the theme every year. This year was...
Nolans, I know.
Yes, Nolan's Nightmare. That is sort of on the bayou, Cajun, Creole, that type of thing, and the voodoo. And the other one was Deadwood. So a Western theme. We did Deadwood first. We liked all the sets. There were a lot of good sets in there this year.
Yes.
They do some great stuff with the sets. As always with Niles, Niles is really the kind of haunt where it's more like a funhouse atmosphere. So you're not going to get...
It's an evening out. Fun night out.
You're not going to get haunts that scare the heck out of you, for example. You're not going to get all these huge elaborate scares that you might see in all these other places. You're going to get standard jump scares where people jump out, or
right, and they did give me a few times, yes.
That's not to say they're not effective, but that's the kind of thing you're going to get. So we went through Deadwood, and what they did this year was they expanded the ending of both of these smaller haunts. They expanded them out to the courtyard. There's a courtyard area that you exit when you're out of the haunt, and it used to be the same one for both. And now they made a separate one for each one. So it's not really done when you leave the actual inside portion of the haunt. That's why it's about 10 minutes. I think usually prior to that they were about 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, they were pretty short before, but they did expand them.
Which one was your favorite of the 2?
I like Nolan's. I mean, Deadwood was really good. The sets were great. But Nolan's, I mean, that really had a great theme. It really felt like parts of it you were outside. And I liked the whole voodoo thing, and just the whole... It felt like you were really in,
New Orleans?
New Orleans, yes, exactly.
Yes,
it was very good.
Speaking of scenes, one of the scenes was a courtyard scene when you first walked in, and it had a balcony, like the houses.
It's like you're outside.
It was almost like you were in New Orleans with the
French Quarter.
In the French Quarter, yeah, exactly.
Yes, I like
there
that.
were old time street lights, and there was a 2-level sort of thing there when you walked in there, and there was obviously a voodoo room. There was a funeral parlor. There was a crypt area. It was nice. It was really nice and atmospheric.
Yes.
And again, is the top of the line scary? No, but that's not really what Niles is all about. Niles is fun, and we love looking at the sets, and they did a good job on both of those.
Yes, the sets were amazing this year. Yes.
And I enjoyed the courtyard, the fact that there were 2 different ones. So in the olden days, you'd go through one, and once you saw that exit, you knew that was the same exit you're going to go through the next time. But this time it was different, so it was kind of cool. It was very enjoyable to do.
I liked it.
One of the big improvements, in my opinion, this year was the hayride.
Yes.
Now, the hayride, you wouldn't say that's scary, though, right?
No, not scary, but it's fun.
Yes, the hayride is definitely fun. It's unusual. Okay?
It's unusual.
It's something.
It's very unique.
You have to experience it. Okay,
yes,
you really do.
Yes, to know.
In the years that we've been going there have been good hayrides, and there have been sort of mediocre hayrides.
Right.
There have been times when they really did it up well and everything clicked, and there were other times when you could tell they were a little bit rushed in what they were doing because it wasn't necessarily complete or didn't flow very well. Let's put it that way. So I think last year was a case of it was just okay. It didn't really flow very well.
Right.
But this year, I have to say, a great improvement. Great improvement. One of the things they did on the hayride this time around was they had pre-recorded messages. They used to have someone there live with you, and they would speak each time, and sometimes you couldn't hear them properly.
Right.
Sometimes the music wouldn't cue properly.
Yes, this one was like recorded, and was like a narration built in.
And it was loud. That's one of the problems on the hayrides. You can't
really
hear
good on this one.
Exactly. And it was a theme. They sort of carried the cowboy theme through from Deadwood. There were a lot of cowboy themed things, and they really redid the sets well. So the hayride travels along this track, and there are different scenes that they actually stop at, where you can actually look at the set design, and then there's usually something that pops out and scares you or does something. They'll squirt some water on you, or they'll blow like an air cannon at you. This year we had a horse that farted on us, which I can honestly say never seen in a haunt of any kind before. A skeletal horse that they had an air cannon and the horse. So thankfully it was just air, but there were a lot of good sets this time around, especially the Western themed sets. And I have to say that within the hayride, there's usually at least one thing that we can say that we've never seen in a haunt anywhere before. I remember several years ago in the hayride, they had a giant lighter. Do you remember the giant lighter?
Yes, I remember that.
It had flames shooting out of it. I mean, this lighter was huge, and it had giant flames shooting out of it. Well, this year, the one thing that I remember that we've never seen in a haunt before was a giant volcano.
Yes.
Not any volcano, a representation of Mount Vesuvius and Pompeii.
Yes, it had I went from like Western to Pompeii.
As it goes together.
Yes,
I don't know how, but it does.
Exactly.
It does. And so they had this giant volcano with ash and with flame shooting out. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that was.
What it has to do with Halloween or haunted house, I don't know, but that's what's on this trail when you go on this haunted hayride. That's the kind of thing you get. So that's what makes it fun.
Right, because you never know what you're going to get on it.
That's right, you don't. And
it's like a box of chocolates.
That's right, it's like Forrest Gump, right?
Yes.
So at the end, after the Pompeii thing, they did some sort of medieval thing with dragons and things. They always have a castle towards the end, and it's usually always the castle. And sometimes they have like a winged creature that comes out and does stuff, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it really doesn't. I think this time it worked, though. The dragons worked well. They actually did a good job of getting the props to work and things. So the hayride overall, and it closed with Salem too. Salem, that is the Salem witch trials, Salem. Yes. So they had some witches. They had some witches burning. Like, it actually looked kind of interesting. You know, little dark for this hayride, because this hayride's usually more fun than scary, I guess, if you want to say. The one thing I could say about this hayride is it's always interesting. You have to experience it. It's something different. So I enjoyed it this year. In fact, I think the hayride was my favorite, because I have to say I was a little disappointed in the main house this year. The main house is their big attraction, and they change it up every year. There are multiple ways of going through it, so if you go through it more than once, you're guaranteed not to see the same thing twice when you go through, which is kind of nice.
Right, but we only did the one side.
We did only the one side. There were a couple of scenes that we did enjoy in there. There was a Jack the Ripper theme.
Yes.
Jack the Ripper theme.
I thought that was very good.
Excellent. That's not something you see in a haunt too often. And what was the other one that you really liked? Did they do Pennywise? Yes, Pennywise. There was it in there, and it was actually well done. You think maybe Pennywise would be played out, because of course the movie and the sequel came out this year, and you think everybody would be doing it, and who knows? We haven't been to that many haunts yet, but so far this one was really good. The sewer setup was really nice. They did a good job with that. So, but overall, to me it was just okay. But again, we take Niles as a whole, not as one single event.
You gotta look at the whole thing.
And they revamped the Field of Screams. They changed the opening to the Field of Screams. This is their outdoor version. And for those of you who've seen our reviews in the past, you know that we're not always a fan of the Field of Screams, because there are a lot of places where you get lost and you wander around for a long time and they don't direct you, and you're out in the middle of a maze, and it gets to be a little monotonous sometimes.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes. But they have changed. They've made some changes over the years. And this one here, now you enter through a crypt.
And it looks really good.
Excellent. It's really nicely done. The crypt, there are tombs and crosses and, of course, creepy people through the crypt. Some of them were actors too. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But, so as you go through, it's mostly outdoors, but you do go through different scenes. There's a cannibal scene. There's a voodoo hut scene, which is really kind of creepy because it's dark in there. You can't really see if there are real actors or not. And there's some like wind chimes that make noise, and really kind of a cool theme as you go through. There's also a scene where you go through, you're actually on pontoon bridges over water. And the bridges go up and down as you're walking. You're actually walking over water, which is pretty neat.
Yes.
So overall, you got, as we said, 5 attractions. The 2 haunts take 10 minutes. The hayride's about 20 minutes. The big house is between 20 and 25. And Field of Screams is also about 25 minutes.
Yes.
Could be longer if you get really lost. There are a
Right.
couple sections there where you get lost. So what's your overall verdict, Laura, in terms
Overall,
of...
I know I sound like a broken record, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a good night out that I look forward to every year. So for me, Niles, overall, if you combine the whole experience, I give it a 5 chainsaws for me overall, like for everything.
Now, in considering that, I have to say that if I were to rate it overall, I would rate it similarly to what Laura just said, in the sense that if you're looking for a value night of entertainment,
because
okay,
you're getting all these different attractions. There's other things you can do. You can have pictures with like ghouls, and there's there's more to it than just the haunts. You could just hang out. They have food. It's just a nice place to go.
Yes.
The theme is
and it's
great,
cheap.
and it's cheap.
It's
for
like
the money.
$30
Yes.
for all of these attractions.
And then there's hooded too, so we didn't do it.
Yeah,
But
if you like that
it's
kind
like
of
an
thing,
adult haunt, and you go in, they put a blindfold or a bag over your head, whatever they do. It was okay, but it wasn't something I really need to do again. It was kind of a one time for me.
Yeah.
So
But if you're
we
into
didn't do
that-
that. But if you take that into consideration with the other haunts, I mean, you have even more then.
Yeah.
So it's like for the value and just like spending a few hours, it's a great time. I mean, you could it's a whole evening.
and if
that
you're
you
looking
can
for
spend.
something that's not really going to scare the kids, like if you have younger kids and you want to take them, Niles is always the place to go.
Yes.
It's a great value. Now, judging each of the haunts, again, you have to go in there. If you're looking for an in-your-face haunt that's going to terrify you and creep you out and stuff, this isn't it. I mean, that's not what Niles is all about. Does it scare you? Sure. Yeah, they surprise you with the jump
they got
scares.
me a few times.
They get you, but they're
they're hiding somewhere and you're walking and they'll jump out. They got me a few times in there.
But for the most part, all the scares are the same. So if you've been there multiple times, you know there's going to be a jump scare. There's going to be a prop that flies out at you. There's going to be an air cannon. There's going to be a pop or something like that. It's a flashing light. It's always the same. Okay. That being said, I like Niles. I do find some years better than others. This year, I couldn't believe I thought this, but my favorite was the hayride this year. It actually was my favorite. I would have to rate them the hayride, Nolans.
I think, was my favorite. I love Nolans this time.
Nolans, Deadwood for me, and then the big house, and then the last one would be Field of Screams. Although I like what they did with it, Field of Screams to me is always just Field of Screams. It's a long trail where you're doing a lot of walking. There are a lot of empty corridors with nobody in them. Every now and then you get a scare, but sometimes you're just walking through. There's an area where you're walking through sheets, and you just keep walking through all these sheets. And remember, there's an area where the strobe, we're in that room, and we couldn't find the way out.
Right.
And that was just same thing over and over. So, but again, Niles is a great value. Great value. This year, for my own personal experience, I'm going to give it a 4. But if you're looking for family entertainment, I'd definitely give it a 5.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Niles is a 5.
It's always a 5 for me because I just have a great time there. I just really enjoy it.
So, do you like it? Is that what I'm getting out of
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
I'm a
quite
big
sure.
fan. No, I do.
Okay, so there
Niles
you
is
have
great.
it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, check
Niles
it out.
Street
It's a
Parks.
great value. It's a fun night out. You can just take the family and spend a few hours and just have a nice time. Just have some fun.
And if your family's annoying you, you can leave them in the Field of Screams and maybe get yourself a break for a little while they find their way out.
Right, exactly.
So, no, but Niles, seriously, Niles is a fun time. So go check it
It's
out.
a good time.
Don't you go round and round a reroll.
Okay. Mike.
The mic.
Mike.
All right. 28.
Wait, it's hot in here. Okay. It's getting hot in here. So, no, never mind. Okay. Nelly, come on. You know Nelly. It's hot. It got warm in here all of a sudden. Okay, ready?
Are you done?
I'm done.
I'm blurry again. This is annoying.
Oh, my hair's in my face. All right. Oh, crap.
These are the only lights you have?
There.
Oh, there we go. That's
okay,
better.
turn it around.
That's better.
Is that better?
That's better.
All right.